welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing another Design With Me video. In the last Design With Me video, we went over designing a product page, kind of the information that you need to show on there, and then all the interactions related to that. I sent over all my designs to my awesome Enkel team and they reviewed it, left me some comments. So in this episode, we're going to go through those comments together and just build out some of those changes and suggestions. I've also actually been learning so much about Figma recently. I did release a Figma tutorial, which I will link in the description box below, but that one really tackles like basic Figma knowledge. What is the tool for? How do you use all of the different functionalities, or at least the basic functionalities? But since then, I've gotten the chance to work with a UX designer to learn about auto layouts and how you can really simplify and just make your design process so much more efficient with auto layouts, but also with components and creating sort of a design system for whatever your project is. So in the process of adding these new sections and making these changes, I've also just gone through and sort of redesigned the web page to a proper gridding system using auto layouts, and you'll see what I mean when I actually go through the clips. But I'm so excited to share this episode with you because I think a lot of the tools and functionalities that I use in this episode is going to drastically change your design workflow in Figma. It's been such a fun project to share with you guys, and it's getting closer and closer every week to it being developed and getting to that point where we can actually apply the change to our website. Until then, I hope you guys are enjoying these videos, and let's go ahead and jump into these changes. Before we get started, I want to shout out today's video sponsor, which is Milanote. If you watched the first Design With Me video, you would have seen me talk about Milanote already, but Milanote is this awesome inspiration gathering, organization, and just like artboarding tool that I use to organize all of my projects before I start, as I'm working through it, and then just to collect sort of a case study for it once the project ends. Here is my Milanote board for this project. As you can see, I will collect things like fonts that I like using, different elements that I've sort of designed so that I can continue to design with this look and feel in mind. Also, a mood board is so important when you are building out any project. At least it is for me, because it gives me guidance and more general direction as to how I want this website to look and feel. It's got so many different elements that you can use, like boards, notes, to-do lists. You can even use arrows and leave comments if you're sharing your board with somebody. It's an absolutely amazing collaborative space as well. If you are working on this project with someone else, you guys can both sort of leave your comments about different items and elements from within the board. Think of it as how people traditionally used like whiteboards or inspiration boards in like creative studios. You have sticky notes, people pin up photos, you pin up pictures in magazines. Maybe if it's a photo shoot, you pin up photos of the outfits, the models, etc. Well, Milanote has taken that whole process and created this amazing digital platform from it, and it honestly is where I begin with every single one of my creative projects. And the best part is Milanote is available for free with no time limit. So if you guys want to give it a try in planning any of your next projects, I have the link in the description below where you can sign up for free. Okay, so to start out, because I am going to be redesigning the website with the proper spacing, gridding, using auto layouts, etc., I'm just gonna create a new desktop frame, and you can select whatever sort of framing you want, but I like to create my website versions in desktop and then my mobile versions in the smallest possible like framing size, which is, I believe, the iPhone SE. Maybe there's something smaller than that. We're looking at the comments here and then just acknowledging whatever that is. And then I'm gonna start from the top, and this is where you can kind of see some of that auto layout working its magic. I essentially, instead of having these as separate objects, made it into an auto layout, which you can see I can adjust the spacing between each item super easily from the sidebar, and then you can go ahead and create padding for it, component on the top, the bottom, the left, and the right, and then adjust the sizing so that it fits within your desktop frame. I'm essentially going to be doing this process on the entire website so that everything is actually in a frame. And when you do this, it just makes sure that all of your spacing is pixel perfect. It's going to stay that size. If you add something, it's going to scale properly. Using auto layouts really just makes your design workflow so much more efficient. Next, I'm going to start creating this new design system. So these are going to be the elements on the website that are probably reusable. So for example, this header scroll bar, I want this to be reusable because I'm probably going to copy and paste it onto a lot of different pages. So when you create something as a component, you can actually just use that component as an asset and you put it on any page. And that way, if in the future I'm like, you know what, I actually want this bar to be yellow or pink or whatever, if I change just that one component's color, it will apply to all of my designs, which means it's gonna save me tons and tons more time and work and effort. So all throughout the video, you're gonna see me do this with a lot of the elements that are reusable. So like the header bar, the navigation bar, as you're seeing right now, and then also some things like buttons and forms and stuff that I know that I'm gonna reuse all throughout the site. And you just wanna make sure that they're all the same, padding, and they're all the same style. And it's just always gonna make sure that these items are pixel perfect, which is very, very important in keeping your site looking unified and just beautiful. Here's another example of something that I am going to create a component for, and then I'm going to do it by sort of creating this new frame via auto layouts. So as you can see, the top version, I created 4 in a row, but it's actually just spaced out with lines. Like those gray lines are just individual lines, which we don't want. So what we're going to do is take the image as well as the text. So the text is already spaced out how we want. We make that into an auto layout so that the text is going to always be 3 or 4, or in this case 2 pixels with, I guess, 2 pixels in between. And then you can apply padding on either side so that it fits the box exactly where you would want it to go. So if I wanted it right against the end of the box, I could put 0 padding on the left, but since I want it kind of indented within the overall box, I'm just adding a little bit of left padding. Once you have that sized perfectly, you want to select the text auto layout as well as the image and create a secondary auto layout, which is this entire box. And then from there, you can actually go and add in borders around this frame so that it's always going to be perfect. Like the lines are going to be gray, they're going to sit on the outside of the box, they're just going to show up more perfectly than if you notice the design on the top, the way that I did it before. It was really hard sometimes to line up the photos and then line up the line right on top of the photos, because if the line is 1.5 pixels but you're trying to line it up between 2 pixels, it wasn't pixel perfect. And that is the goal that we want to achieve. Because it looks good, like it looks better to the human eye when it is, but also it's going to make your developer's job way easier when you do this, because they can actually apply the design work directly to their build with the exact numbers that you provided them. With components, another really cool functionality is that you can actually create variants to your components. And for this particular example, because I'm designing an e-commerce website, I'm actually going to create these boxes, but variants for all these boxes with all my different products, as well as what they look like when you hover over them. This way, when you're putting together the actual design, you can really quickly and easily select exactly what product you want to display in that box, as well as maybe like a hover toggle. And then that way you don't have to go back and like change the image, change the text, and change the pricing every time you want to make a change to a web page. I know it's a little bit more like an extra work right off the bat, But if you imagine, if I put in the work now, and let's say it takes like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, this is actually going to save you that 10, 15, 20 minutes when you're designing pages after pages and you realize you have to like change out the image, change out the text. I personally just find that putting in the work into my design system in the beginning just helps me to be more creative when I'm actually designing the overall web page, because it takes these decision-making moments away from me and I can just focus on being as creative as I can, I guess. But you can see here what all of the products, all the variations look like all finished. And then when I actually go into my design, I just have to select that asset that I just created, make as many of them as I want. So in this case, I want 4. I can resize them because my new desktop size is actually smaller than my original desktop size. And then you can see I'm gonna create those into an auto layout, and then going into the sidebar, looking at the drop down, and then I can select all the different products that I wanna show in that area. So for example, in this section, because it's the first set of products that you're looking at on the site, I want it to be my best sellers, my most loved products, and so I can easily and quickly select them from the drop down. It's so cool. I love that functionality, and yeah, I just feel like it has really upgraded and elevated my design process. So I'm gonna go through the rest of the site now and just do the same thing, create everything in auto layouts, and then we can go through it together. Okay, now that all the original sections have been recreated in this new format, I'm gonna go ahead and review some of these comments. So some of the comments that I got were, is this section too high up, like this product carousel section? Should we add another about section? Should we add a testimonial section? And then we'll need like kind of a collections section as well. So what I'm gonna do is just expand my desktop frame and then sort of move things around so that I have space to create some of these new sections. So for the collection section, I actually realized that I had created a collection section. It is quite low on the page though, and because it's named as your favorites, that people or users may kind of misunderstand what it's for. So I've decided to rename that section as Art Collections, and hopefully that will kind of clear things up to users, because yes, I do web design and I'm trying to create this user experience, but if somebody that I hand the design off to can't understand that that's a collections section, then I'm doing something wrong and I need to simplify the language or simplify the design in some way. So after reviewing what that looks like as a whole, I decided to switch those sections back and have those individual products still be kind of more closer to the top of the page, and then have the collections section actually just be right under that. It just looked a little disjointed to me having this collections section up higher than that section, and I just think that this makes more sense for people to be able to shop the bestsellers right away, and then being able to see like more items from the collections. And then you can kind of see me rearranging the page here. I do this a lot when I'm putting together a web page. I just move sections around to see where it would fit best. You have to think about both sort of where that content makes sense and where it's going to be the most useful to your customers. So if you're an e-commerce site, you want sort of the why or kind of the sell right near the top. And then kind of supporting that content with testimonials and platforms and socials and offers and stuff like that. So you have to think about it in that sense. And then sort of the weight of the page. So you can see I have these sections that are in green, which are a bit heavier in weight because they have a darker background. So using sections like that to break up sort of white space really helps to draw the eye down the page as well. Something else that I was requested to do is build out a testimonial section. So I'm actually going to do this directly within my design systems page, because I know that these are going to be reusable elements that I want to copy over page after page. So I actually started out with a desktop frame with our gridding system, and this just allows me to make sure that the elements that I design are fitting within our gridding system really well. What I did was just copy over the text from another one of our pages, because this is the text size that we want to use. And then I just copied and pasted one testimonial in to kind of use as an example. I started playing with the text size and sort of the padding between the text. and then figuring out how wide I actually want these boxes to be. I think I decided on sort of 3 columns per box. It's a 12 column gridding system, which means I can have 4 testimonials with a 24 pixel padding in between them. And then I had to make sure that I made the text box actually smaller than that, because you want to have padding around the text box as well, which you guys will see what I mean in a bit. As I'm designing this, I'm also thinking like, okay, what are the most critical pieces of information that I want to have in these testimonial boxes? Obviously the testimonial, but also who left it and when they left it, because that gives more credibility. I later on decided that I wanted to add the title of the testimonial as well as the star rating system. I of course made this into an auto layout so that I can easily add padding left and right, top to bottom, and then also easily add a border around the frame to frame the testimonial and then adjust like the border radius and make it round and cute. And then all I did was duplicate this testimonial 4 times. I can go back and change the text after, once I've finalized how I want that design to look. And one thing I did here that's a bit different than some of the other auto layouts is, because I knew that my testimonials were going to be different lengths, but I still wanted the name to be aligned at the bottom along with the other testimonials, is in my auto layout, I did space between instead of having the items within the auto layout to be stacked. And you can adjust that using the 3 dots within your auto layouts panel. But essentially that just spaces the items in between, so that when I duplicate that, or when I change any of the, let's say like the testimonial blurb, the text, it's still going to align all the names at the bottom, all the stars at top, and it's just going to be that singular element that changes. Once I have the design exactly how I wanted, I've also added in the other sort of testimonial copy. I can make it into a component, and then that way I can pull it from my assets right into the site, and then add a heading as well as some subtext. And voila, we have a beautiful, simple testimonial section. Here is the final scroll of the site. As you can see, things just look a little bit more aligned now. I don't know if you could really tell in the last one, because I tried to make it as pixel perfect as possible, as I do with all of my designs, but now I can confidently tell you that using auto layouts, these are spaced and sized perfectly for this frame size. You can see the collections section that I sort of edited to fit into that portion of the page. I added actually a see more button right underneath that so they can see more from that specific collection. Made sure I rearranged some of those darker blocks to break up some of that white space. I think the auto layouts padding is really visible in this Y ankle section. I feel like before the images were sort of overlapping, even though the words and the images were the same size width-wise and length-wise, it just doesn't look as put together as it does now that I've sort of divided it up perfectly amongst our gridding system. Here is the testimonial section that I added, and I did add some pagination to this section as well, so that users know that you can actually scroll to see more testimonials. And then the last area where I applied the auto layout that I think is really noticeable is actually the footer. You can see that each of those columns are actually divided between 2 columns, and then the last one I believe is like 3 columns, and it all has equal spacing in between. I know it doesn't look that way exactly because the length of the text is different, but if you look at it as a whole, it just looks like proportionally right, if that makes sense. I'm still waiting for some comments on the product pages that I designed last time, so if you guys want to see me review changes for those pages and sort of design and make edits to those pages, please let me know and I can do that in my next video. I really hope that this was helpful to you, and I will be doing a more in-depth video on auto layouts and how I use it in kind of a how-to format soon, because that is part 2 to my Figma series. If there's anything else that you want to see from this series, please let me know. I think in the next video I'm going to go over designing the mobile versions of this site as well, because I want to show you how we can use auto layouts to really easily resize things for mobile. But I think that's everything for today. If you guys want to try out Milano for your next creative project, please check out the link in the description box below. Other than that, I hope you guys are having an amazing day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!